Okay, so this is our first practical tutorial, and here we're going to look at creating our first Maven project via the command line. But before we start, I'd just like to go over to the Apache Maven documentation to the introduction to archetypes, because we're going to be using an archetype to generate our first project. In fact, like I said previously, we're going to be using the Quick Start archetype. The Maven Quick Start archetype generates a very simple Java Maven project. In fact, the Java program it generates is just a simple hello world. But what it does do, it shows you the underlying structure of a Maven project. What I mean by structure, I mean the file structure, so the various folders and subfolders within a Maven project. It also shows you and generates a basic POM XML file. So our project is going to be a quick start project, but if we want more information about that, we head down to Maven archetype page and click on there. We're given a list of all the various archetypes that Maven has. There are actually many more than this, but these are the main ones, and quick start is one of those. So we click on that link. At the top, we're given a summary of what's going to get produced by this archetype. And it actually produces a sample app, a sample Java application. Now, to get Maven to invoke the archetype, we need to run this command via a command window. Now, MVM is short for Maven, so really it's a batch file that invokes Maven. The archetype generate, this is basically what in Maven world is called a goal, which is equivalent to kind of a task. So it's telling Maven to perform a task of generate. The rest of the string after the generate, so from here onwards, is basically identifying to Maven the plugin to use for the generate task. So a plugin is basically identified by three components: a group ID, an artifact ID, and a version number. Now we're going to look at plugins and how to identify them through what's known as a Maven coordinate in a later lecture. So we can use this to create our quick start project. So if we just select all that and then go down and open up a command window. Again, I'm using Windows 7, so if you're using Linux, it'll be a little bit different. And then go in here and paste that. So we've got the whole string MVN, archetype generate, group ID, artifact ID. Now when it comes to the version, it says here 5 snapshot. That is actually incorrect, and I've tried it in rehearsals and it didn't actually work. So I went on to Maven Central, and the latest release of this particular plugin is 1.1. So if we delete this 5 snapshot and just replace it with 1.1, what that will do, that will basically tell Maven to check the local repository for this particular plugin, version 1.1. If it doesn't exist, go off to Maven Central over the internet and then download the plugin and all its dependencies. So you will need internet access for this to work. So if we hit return, we should see that process in action. And there we have it. We've actually gone off to http repo mavenapache.org, and it's downloading all the dependencies that particular plugin needs. This is actually going to take some time, so what I'll do is I'll pause the video now and I'll resume once we go on to the next stage. Okay, and I've finished downloading everything. As you can see here, I've actually got an exception raised, and this was caused by an interruption to my internet connection. But everything for you should be okay, but not to worry, because if Maven fails to retrieve the dependency or the plugin it requires, it will try again. So now we have to provide a group ID, and again a group ID is really just a unique ID for a project's group, and I'm going to use denoprogramming.com. We're using reverse order the domain name, so it'll be com.denofprogramming. As long as it's unique, that's fine. And the artifact ID, which is really the name of the project itself, so I'm going to call this sample1. Then the version number, this is a snapshot. I'm going to keep it as a snapshot until I actually release it for public consumption. So I'll just use the default there of 1.0 snapshot. The package, this is basically the Java package that everything is going to be created under. com.denoprogram, which is fine, keep the default there. And we'll say yes to that. And that's it. We now have a sample Maven project created, and we've called it sample1. So if we go into that directory and do tree, this is the project Maven's created for us. We've got sample1, we've got a top level source directory, we have a main and a test. In the next tutorial I'll talk about the actual directory structure Maven provides us. But one other thing before we go, do dir, you'll see a pom.xml. And we can have a quick look inside that pom.xml now. So just do type. In the next tutorial, I'm going to talk about the directory layout that Maven provides us. And then we're going to look at how we can import this Maven project into our Eclipse IDE environment.